Good day. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use STATA 15.1, and basically I'm going to show you how to write a code known as the do file in order to do your basic data management and data analysis tasks, right? And just a background, STATA is a powerful statistical software that it's very fairly flexible, allows you to use and how allows you to run data analysis through its buttons, through its GUI interface, or it allows you to write a code known as the do file. Right. So one advantage of writing a do file, and the reason I'm doing this tutorial is because of the advantages of writing the code before you do the analysis, or you write your code when you do these types of analysis. When you write the code, it allows you to document all of the steps, allows you to plan ahead, right? And of course, it eases the task of reviewing the codes that you have written, right? So in any case, if you encountered any errors, or if you need to check where the error is coming from, a do file allows you to easily debug, right, the steps that you have undertaken. Right. So in this tutorial, just to avoid intimidating new users of Stata, I'll just show you how to load the dataset, how to save a dataset, how to unload that dataset, and how to produce basic summary statistics using this software. Right. Of course, as I normally say, you can use your Windows basic Windows software to do the basic and do these types of analysis, but Stata is fairly more powerful and faster when you wanted to generate these basic statistics. Right. So here, let me just show you a little bit of a background. So here, this is your software interface. Okay, this is your Stata interface. This is the results window. All of the output will be shown here, right? You can, all of the commands, all of the errors will be shown in the results window. You can type the command interactively in the command box, and this command window. When you load the data set, the variables will appear here, right? And whatever you type in this command window will show up here in the review window, right? Advanced users of Stata would normally just look at the do file editor window and results window, so basically interchangeably, right? So let's try to load a data set in the system. So normally I would write a do file, right? But if I wanted to be faster, of course, I would still I won't deny it. I will use the user interface. But normally, when I use the software, I would always start off with the do file editor. So let's type here, say, basics of basic data exercises using Stata. So here, when you use an asterisk, or when you type an asterisk, you're basically including a comment in the. You're basically writing a comment in your code, in your do file, so it won't do anything in your system. It'll just show up in the results window later on. All right, so to ease the process of loading and unloading datasets, it's common practice to set the directory, right? So I would normally set the directory that contains the datasets or the files that I wanted to extract. So in my case, I'm using a Mac, so I'll just go to my documents. All right, go to my documents. It's contained here in the course. Sorry, it's in the course folder. Suppose we wanted to use the sample datasets from Woldridge, so I will just get the file path. All right, get the file path, and then I'm going to paste it here. The reason I'm doing this is because Stata is very particular with respect to file names and with respect to file directory. So if you wanted to avoid the tedious task of copying the entire file path every time you wanted to load the data set, it's advisable that you set the directory right ahead, right? So CD here sets that directory, right? It sets the directory. So when I run this, so you can run this for Mac users, you can just highlight the code and press Command-Shift-D. Or you can also click this. You can click this button, execute, right? So you just select the lines of code that you wanted to run, right? And then you can click execute do. Or if you're already a matter of practice, if you wanted to make it faster, you can just press Command Shift D. For Windows users, that would be Control D, right? So let me press this. So now that the folder is already recognized by the system. So all of the files that we extract from this folder, right? All of the files will be extracted from this folder, and we can just refer to the file names for the files that are included in this directory, right? So how do we load the data? Load the data. So to load the data, let's use Wooldridge wage 1 data, which is contained, it's basically here, right? So wage 1. So suppose I wanted to use wage 1 DTA, right? So to load the data set, right, just make sure that it's contained in the directory. So to load the STATA data set, I wanted to use wage 1. Let me just hide this. To load the data set, I'll just type use wage 1 DTA. Right? So I'll just highlight this and then press Command Shift D. And the data set is loaded. You know that the data set is already there if the variable names appear in this variable window. If you're still used to seeing spreadsheets, right, you can type in browse just to give you that assurance that the data set is already there. When you type browse, the spreadsheet for that particular data set will appear. So this is the usual site when you open Excel, right? But it's all in the background. When you use data, everything is in the background. But of course, you can just open it in case you wanted to check something. Right? When you're still in the data exploratory phase, you're still trying to explore the data set, more often than not, you will open that or you'll use that browse option to check how your data set looks like. Right? I also do that. Okay. So the thing about browse is that you can actually select what variables you wanted to browse or what variables you wanted to look at. Right? So you can just type browse. So I say I wanted to look at wage, edu, and experience. I can just type the variables, and then when I click do, it will just show you the spreadsheet for those set of variables. Okay. So that's your browse function, right? You can also check the characteristic or the structure of your data set by typing the word describe, right? So describe shows you the structure of the data. So basically, your information, all of the underlying information regarding your data set. Right? So it shows you the list of the variables included. It shows you the number of observations. Right? It shows you the file, the date the file was created. It also shows you the size. I think this is in terms of kilobytes. You have the number of variables, and it also shows you the format. Right? The format, whether the variable is numeric, if the variable is string, and it also shows you the variable label. It could also show you how the variable is sorted. In this case, it's not sorted in a particular manner. Right? So that's describe option. Um, well, what else can we talk about? So we can also run some basic summary statistics as mentioned. So if you wanted to say get the mean, of say wage, right? We can just type in summary or sum, shortcut sum wage, right? So summary statistics. Right? So just type in sum wage. Right? And then let's press do. Right? So the nice thing about Stata is that it shows you the basic information, basic distributional information about your variable, something that you cannot easily do in your typical spreadsheet software. Right? In Stata, you can just type in sum wage and it will show you the number of observations. It shows you the average, sample average to be exact. It shows you the standard deviation. It also shows you the minimum, lowest observation, lowest value in in this variable, the highest value for this variable. Right? You can also do that for a couple of variables. So if you wanted to say look at the summary stats of wage vis-a-vis education or experience, you can type in those three variables all at once, and it will generate the summary statistics for you. So it's a really nice data set. It's balanced in the sense that all of the observations have non-missing values. Right? So it shows you the distribution of not only of wage, it also shows you the distribution of edu and distribution of experience. All right. So that's your summary statistics. Now, in some instances, you may want to look at or you may be interested in looking at the summary statistics of a particular variable disaggregated across a particular category. So for instance, what if you're interested in looking at the average wage between married and non-married couples, right? So we have a dummy variable here. We have a categorical variable here, which is married, right? So when you have a categorical variable, you can check it first. And you can examine that categorical variable first, right? By say looking at its frequency table. This is the thing about Stata that some other statistical software cannot easily do. Right? So if you wanted to get the frequency of a categorical variable in Excel, you normally need the pivot table to do or to create a frequency table, right? Frequency table for a categorical variable. But in Stata, you don't need to do that. It's not too difficult because you just need to use the command tab. So if you wanted to say get the number of observations that are married, number of observations that are not married, just type tab married, right? And it shows you the distribution. Right? So you have 320 observations who are married and 206 who are not married. It also shows you the percentage, right? Shows you the percentage. This is particularly handy if you're, say, quickly asked by your supervisor to get the proportion. If you have a categorical variable like this, if you're asked to get the proportion of observations who are married or not, this is an instant statistic for you. Now, if you wanted to do a cross tabulation, you can also do that easily using Stata. So you still use the command tab, and you have, so suppose you wanted to cross tabulate married and female, so you have married, and then you just type the variable female. Take note that the cross tabulation only works if you have a categorical discrete variables. Right? And this shows you the cross tabulation. You can also test it for, you can also do the chi-square test using cross tabulation, right, by just typing chi-squared or chi2 as an option, right, to show you some chi-squared statistics, show you the relationship between these two categorical variables. Okay. Now, what if, again, going back to wage, what if I wanted, say, to get the summary stats, disaggregated summary stats for wage across, say, across marital status, right? So if I wanted to do so, I can just use, instead of using sum, I'll use the more complex command known as tab stat. Right? So this command tells you, this command shows the summary statistic, allows you to select summary statistics for a particular variable, and allows you to disaggregate that variable according to a group or by group, right? So you have, so say you wanted to say get the summary stat for wage, and you wanted to disaggregate it by, maybe we can disaggregate it by multiple categories. Say, well, let's start off with marital status. So by married, right? So by default, if you just type it as it is, it will just show you the averages. This is just the mean, right? So this is the disaggregated mean of wage across marital status. So in essence, you're getting higher wages on average for married couples than for non-married couples. If you wanted to make it a little more complex, you can specify what statistics do you want. So do you want the number of observations? You just type N. If you wanted to get the mean, type mean. wanted to get the standard deviation, you can type SD. If you wanted to get the minimum, you just type min. If you wanted to get the percentiles, and this is something that the sum command cannot do, you can get the percentiles. So I'll list all the possible percentiles that you can compute. So you have first percentile, fifth, 10th, 25th, 50, 75th, 90, 95th, and 99th percentile. And we'll just run this, and it shows you the summary stats. Right? So this is the disaggregated summary stats for wage. Right? Not only for married couples, you can actually disaggregate this by as long as the variable is discrete, as long as the categorical variable is discrete, you can actually do it. See for Edo. Right? So this is a summary table showing the average wage, right? Average wage across years of education. Okay. That's your summary statistics. Now, if you want to do, say, a basic correlation among between continuous variables, something that you have done here in line 22 for categorical variables, you can use the correlation command. So normally I would use the Pearson or pairwise correlation, right? That ignores the missing values, right? So suppose I wanted to get the correlation between wage and experience. Right? So this shows you the correlation. PW4 shows you the correlation between two variables, right? So to clear, and so those are the basic summary statistics that you would often use in STATA to examine your data set. Now to clear, right, to unload the data set in the system, you just have to type the word clear. And the data is no longer there. Now, there's a couple of reminders when you're using Stata. The thing about Stata is that it doesn't have the prompt that you would normally encounter in your Windows software. Right? So when you do something, when you overwrite something, it's already there. Right? So when you save, for instance, I don't normally press this button. Actually, I don't normally press the save button because it's unsafe. So it's really unsafe because once you overwrite the data set, so for example, you dropped a couple of variables and then you accidentally click the save button, those changes cannot be undone anymore. And that's the reason why I encourage students to save their do files. I encourage students to save, I encourage first-time users of Stata to save their do files because it allows them to go back. Right? So it allows them to go back, it allows them to run certain exercises. You can drop variables, you can include additional variables, you can generate new variables. Right? Something that we'll cover in the next exercise. You can change the data set, right, without necessarily saving it, because when you close the software, when you close the program, you can just open the do file editor again, right, and rerun the same codes without necessarily changing the data set. Okay. So that's it for this today's basic exercise using Stata. In the next session, we will cover how to generate variables, how to generate basic variables, how to generate special variables, and how to run basic regression analysis.